There are five things everyone should know about IVF. Whether you are considering IVF, you're learning about IVF, or you're deep in the process, there are five things that I think everyone should know. As a reproductive endocrinologist, fertility specialist, and former IVF patient myself, there's so many things I want to share with my patients and with you as you're learning about IVF, but I've narrowed it down to these five. Let's get started. If this is your first time finding this channel, welcome. Be sure and subscribe so you get my weekly videos all about reproductive health. And if you're coming back to the channel, welcome back. I am so glad that you are here. I'm Dr. Lora Shahine, a double board certified OBGYN and reproductive endocrinologist, helping people with IVF for over 20 years. I am a former IVF patient myself, and there's so many things that I want to share about IVF. It is an amazing technology, but it's okay to feel reluctant about it, worried about it. There's so much I want to share about it, but I've narrowed it down to five important things everyone should know about IVF. We're going to go over each of the five things that I want you to know, but stick around to the end, or I'm going to share more resources for more learning and in-depth recommendations. There are two other ways to learn more about reproductive health and to stay in touch. One is subscribing to my weekly newsletter. There's a link in the description. Be sure and subscribe so you get my weekly newsletter about educational content, fertility in the news, and products I recommend. The second way is my weekly podcast. I have a playlist here on YouTube. You can listen anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's called the Baby or Bust Fertility Podcast with Dr. Lora Shahine. Interviews and in-depth discussions on important topics all about reproductive health and more. Now let's get into these five things I want everyone to know about IVF. Number one, IVF will not put you into menopause sooner. This is such a common misconception and myth. The whole goal of IVF is to be efficient. It's to stimulate the ovaries in order to recruit multiple eggs in one cycle. When we are ovulating regularly, we ovulate one, sometimes two eggs, but typically one egg. But there's a whole set of other eggs that were there and up for grabs in that cycle that just die off and go away. Human reproduction is very inefficient, and IVF, or in vitro fertilization, is taking advantage of this inefficiency and giving your body the same hormones that you make every month to recruit one egg, giving a higher dose of these gonadotropins in order to recruit whatever's there. And the number of eggs that are available are really different for each person. Some people have 5 eggs that are available each cycle. Some people have 20 eggs that are available each cycle. The number of eggs that are available is not in our control, but recruiting whatever is there in order to be more efficient is in our control, and that's what we're trying to do. But I cannot tell you how many times I've had patients call me years later or after their cycle and say, Dr. Shahine, you got 12 eggs from my egg retrieval that we did a while back. Does that mean I'm going to go through menopause a year sooner? That's such a common question. So doing IVF does not use up a resource. It's not draining you of eggs that you would use in the future. You are not going to go through menopause sooner if you do IVF. You are just recruiting eggs in that particular cycle that would be lost anyway. Number two, IVF is not necessarily going to give you twins or triplets. I have a lot of people that are reluctant to even consider IVF as a fertility treatment because they are so nervous about having multiples. We know that being pregnant with twins and triplets is a higher risk pregnancy for both the person who is pregnant and the babies. You don't usually deliver on time, you usually deliver early, and there's lots of complications that can come with delivering a baby early. And lots of things can happen in a pregnancy with multiple gestations. But IVF traditionally has been associated with a higher risk of twins, a higher risk of triplets, or even more. Or you might even remember Octomom. I mean, that is not happening anymore, but that was a woman who transferred multiple embryos and ended up pregnant and delivering 8 babies. That's why she was called Octomom. That instance, those stories of high order multiples gave IVF a horrible reputation. And a lot of times, even today, people say, I really don't want to do IVF because I don't want to have twins, triplets, or more. And I tell people, listen, our goal is to have one healthy baby at a time. And I have seen a dramatic change in the number of multiple gestation pregnancies in my own career as we have gotten better at IVF, as we have learned more about selecting embryos that have the highest chance of implantation. Most of the time, we only transfer one embryo. And so our goal, one healthy baby at a time. There is no reason to transfer more than one embryo most of the time. But of course, there are exceptions. Like, of course, there are. But it's such a different world than when I started IVF, where I was transferring three, four, sometimes five embryos. We didn't have genetic screening of embryos. We really needed to learn a lot. And in my career, success rates have improved with a lower rate of multiple gestations. And so no longer do you need to assume that you have a higher risk of twins or triplets or more if you do IVF. It is all about a good discussion with your doctor and thinking about the number of embryos you're going to transfer. And the majority of the time, we transfer one. The third thing I wish everyone knew about IVF is that there are so many reasons to do IVF. I think the assumption is that it's for female factor fertility issues. Just like we assume that anything that has to do with family building has got to be the woman's fault. There are so many reasons to use IVF as a technology that are different. For example, male factor fertility. That's an excellent reason to do IVF. Sometimes there's such significant low sperm production, such significant poor sperm function that doing IVF, when you have the eggs and sperm in the lab and helping with that fertilization, can dramatically help someone build their family. So it's not just about female factor fertility issues. There are absolutely male factor fertility issues that IVF can help. Other than male factor fertility, there's many other reasons that people can do IVF. I can think of two more. Number one, fertility preservation. So the biggest predictor of fertility and ability to conceive and have a baby is age of eggs and sperm. As we age, fewer and fewer of the eggs and sperm are able to turn into a healthy baby. It's more dramatic with eggs. That's why we talk a lot about age factor for eggs, but it also happens with sperm. So a lot of people will use IVF to preserve their fertility. You can think about this as egg freezing. You can think about this as freezing your eggs before cancer treatment. A lot of cancer treatment, like chemotherapy and radiation, will harm egg and sperm function. So people will freeze their eggs or they'll freeze their sperm before they have cancer treatment and then be able to have a family later in life when they're ready. People will freeze their fertility, either eggs or create embryos with a partner, keep it frozen and wait to start or complete their family for lots of reasons. Sometimes it's health reasons, like I talked about cancer, endometriosis, but sometimes there's lots of reasons that people want to delay starting their family, and they realize that as they age, their ability to have a family gets harder and harder. So they'll freeze their eggs, sperm, or they'll create embryos at a younger stage in life and keep them for later. So if you've been thinking that IVF is only for women who can't get pregnant, think again, because IVF can be used in lots of different situations for family building. The fourth thing I want everyone to know about IVF is the reality of the side effects. This is so overblown in social media or in movies and comedy sketches. IVF is not fun. There are definitely side effects. I've done it myself. I've helped people go through IVF cycles for over 20 years. There's definitely fatigue. There's definitely bloating. It is wild to give yourself or give your partner shots for 2 weeks. And I am not saying it's a walk in the park, but I do think that a lot of times people are so scared about the side effects because of what they've seen, in media, that sometimes they're just terrified to do IVF. And the vast majority of the time when I'm reviewing things with my patients and we're kind of talking about after the egg retrieval, how things are going, they say, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Yes, I was tired. Yes, I was bloated. It was not fun giving myself shots, but most of the time people go through the IVF cycle and recover well. So I cannot tell you what your personal experience is going to be, or if you've done IVF, what it was for you. And there are people that do have significant side effects and a significantly hard time with IVF, but the vast majority of people say it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And the final thing, the fifth thing I wish everyone knew about IVF is a really hard one to share with you. But it's really important that you know that no treatment is 100% successful. No matter how much I want it to be, nobody can guarantee an outcome with any treatment. Egg freezing, fertility preservation, an IVF cycle. We can do everything that we can, but we cannot ever guarantee that you're going to have the family of your dreams with any intervention. And it's hard for me to share. Most of the time, people will meet that goal of if they want to be a parent, they will meet that goal. I can't always tell them how it's going to be. I can't tell them how many intrauterine inseminations it's going to take or how many egg retrievals or whether it's going to take using donor egg, donor sperm, gestational carrier, adoption. There's many ways to build a family, but IVF is not 100% successful. And I think that's really important. I definitely see people that have pretty unrealistic expectations of IVF, sort of feeling like, oh, I can wait as long as I want to have kids, or I can, do whatever I want as far as lifestyle optimization. And then IVF is so high tech, it's so expensive that I just know it's going to work and I'll have my baby when I'm ready and kind of whatever I want to do with my health. Oh my gosh, that is just not the case. Everyone is unique and different, and the success with IVF involves so many factors. It's hard to share this one with you, but it is really important that IVF is not 100% successful. So I hope this has been helpful. Let's recap. Here are the 5 things I want everyone to know about IVF. Number 1, IVF is not going to send you into menopause. You are not going to use up all your eggs if you do an IVF cycle. Number 2, you are not necessarily going to have twins, triplets, or multiple gestations if you do IVF. Number 3, there are many reasons that people do IVF, so don't make assumptions if someone's doing IVF that you know exactly why. Number 4, the reality of side effects with IVF is the majority of people say it wasn't as bad as they thought it was going to be. And the 5th thing is that no treatment is 100% guaranteed. And there are many ways to build your family and to meet your goals. Now, I want to leave you with some resources to learn more about IVF. I have a whole playlist on YouTube that is all about IVF. And if you have to start with a couple of my videos, here are the top 5 I would recommend starting with if you want to learn more about IVF. Video number 1, why IVF? So I went into a couple of the reasons that people do IVF, and you might be surprised at the multiple other reasons that are there. Number 2, preparing for IVF. So if you're thinking about doing it, there's some really important things that I want to make sure that you know. Number 3, what I wish I knew before I did IVF. So here I am, a fertility doctor. I'm helping people do IVF every single day, but it is so different when you go through it yourself. And so that is a really important video to watch. Number 4, IVF timeline. How long does it really take? This is often very different. The reality is very different from a lot of my patients' expectations. So I think understanding realistically how long this process takes can be very helpful. And finally, number 5, the cost of IVF. This is such an important topic. Some people have coverage, some people don't, but a realistic understanding of not only the true cost of IVF, but also some really important resources to help you find ways to make it happen for you. I hope you found this helpful. Share this with someone that you know is thinking about doing IVF and you want to help them find some resources to get more information. Be sure and subscribe to my channel so you get my weekly videos all about reproductive health. You can find more information on my newsletter each week, my podcast each week. Look at the playlist here for all of the episodes of the Baby Your Best Fertility podcast. And until next week, wishing you love, luck, and pineapples.